You did it! Congratulations! I'm so excited for you, and I know that you're glad the semester's over. I know I'm glad the semester's over. So now it's time to celebrate and relax and hopefully not sit in front of a computer screen all day, which means it's a great time to read. Every semester, I have students ask me what my favorite books are, and sometimes I'll tell them, whatever it is that I'm reading at the time, but I thought, what better time to just share with you some of my favorite books. So if you like to read and you're not really sure what to read, then feel free to watch. And if books are not your thing, then you can just kind of click stop right now. No harm, no foul, that's okay. But this is an opportunity for your English teacher, or I guess I should almost say your former English teacher, to just kind of geek out a little bit on books. So if you want to hear about some good books to read, then watch. All right, I'm going to just kind of buzz through some of my favorites here. Pachinko. This book, great storyline. I'm trying to figure out where to put the book. Great storyline. It's one of those books that kind of chronicles a family over generation to generation to generation. It's so good. Song of the Hummingbird. It's not very long, so for those of you who are looking for a quick read, this is a good one to pick. It's a book that I hope to teach sometime in the Latino Lit course here at LMC. Oh, Fine Balance. This book is old. I know it's, 80s, 90s, but it sat with me for a long time. I was really so moved by what happens to the characters in this book. It's set in India, and it is just such a good read. In the Time of the Butterflies, this one is set against the Dominican Republic during the uprising. It is fiction, but it's based kind of loosely around things that actually did happen in the Time of the Butterflies. Again, it's not necessarily very long, but it is a powerful read, and if you've never read anything by Julia Alvarez, this is a great starting piece. This book, I read over the summer last year and decided to teach it in the Puente class, or offer it as one of the book club options. I really like this writer, Luis Alberto Urrea. He has some really great nonfiction pieces, one of which I have taught before called The Devil's Highway, about border crossing. This one's fiction, and it's just a really good story. Again, a lot of them are just good stories, right? Bel Canto, oldie but goodie. I love this writer. The setting is an opera, and kind of what happens when terrorists come in and seize the opera, and what happens to the terrorists and what happens to the people who are kind of held victim. It sounds strange, and it is. The premise of it is very odd, but the way that she weaves the story together is masterful. I know that some of you have read this in English 100, but if you haven't read it yet, now's the time. Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me. It's a response to James Baldwin. So if you have never read any James Baldwin before, start there, and then read Coates, because Coates' response is in response to James Baldwin. But this is a book that is everybody should read. The Immortalists. This book asks the question, would you want to know the day of your death? Just think on that for a minute. Would you want to know the day of your death? That's the premise of this book. Characters initially find out the day they're going to die, and then the book kind of plots along their life. It's super interesting, and it really does raise the question, would you want to know? And if you did, would you live your life differently? Geraldine Brooks. I love this writer too. Again, not very long, dark topic. It's about the plague, but it's super interesting. What would have happened in the 1600s if we had been alive during the plague? Now, granted, maybe in the current times it's not a good pick if you are worried about kind of seeping yourself into pandemics and all that. But as far as the literature and the reading piece of this goes, it's such a good book. All right, I have to include Steinbeck. And everyone says, oh, Steinbeck, you read Mice and Men in 9th grade. Yeah, it's not the best Steinbeck. Cannery Row, okay. People say, oh, Grapes of Wrath. I think that they are skipping what is the best Steinbeck book, which is East of Eden. Yes, it's long, but the story is so good. So if you are ready to just kind of dig in and you want to dig into a classic, East of Eden is a great pick. But if you're not interested in a classic and you just want a good long story that's going to keep you kind of held for a while, I would read A Little Life. This book is easily in my top 10, top 5 probably. It's long, and it is devastating on so many different levels. But when this book ended, I did not want it to end. I just did not want it. I was not ready for what happened, for the story. I was, yeah. And it's what I need to reread because it's, because you just want to go back to those characters. This is not a plot book. It's not like Dan Brown, Angels and Demons, or anything like that. It's a book where you really dive into the characters. A Little Life. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. If you have not read this yet, read it. It's excellent. She has another book called On the Come Up, and I just heard she recently released a new one that's set to come out this fall. If you're thinking, oh, I would like to see the movie, read the book first. I haven't seen the movie. I'm not sure I want to because I really just do love the book. Oh, Tyree Jones, An American Marriage. This book is just so good. I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed this book and would recommend it. It's not very long, but it is, again, a good story and one that I think would pair really well with The Hate You Give. It would pair well with Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. It definitely dives into racial complexities in the world. So if you're interested in reading about that, read this book. For those of you who just kind of like a quiet book, right? There's nothing flashy, then pick up Richard Russo every time. Empire Falls is great. Bridge of Sighs is great. This book is not one that it's not a page turner, but you'll fall in love with the setting and the characters. Great. Classic. I know there's a plague theme here, but if you've never read any Albert Camus, you need to do it in college. You have lots of different options of times of when you can do it, but you need to read some Albert Camus before you either get your AA or your bachelor's. It's just kind of commonplace. The plague is a good place to start. Oh, on Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. This book was so good. It's a letter written it's fiction, so it's a letter written by the author to his mother, who cannot read. So he knows that his mother is never going to be able to read it. And it's kind of a coming out story of sorts, set in the backdrop of growing up in Vietnam. And it is beautifully written. It's so lovely, but also heartbreaking. Anyway, this one was on my to be read pile for a long time. I don't know why. I just didn't have time to read it. And it is a fictionalized story behind kind of the idea of the Underground Railroad. And Colson Whitehead is just amazing. His other book called The Nickel Boys is also a book that I would totally recommend. Not as long as this one, but the Underground Railroad was just so interesting. Again, it's fiction, but it really kind of makes you question your place and how willing you are to kind of defend where you think you should be. Many of you know The Kite Runner from Khaled Hosseini. This is 1,000 Splendid Suns. I think it is better than The Kite Runner, which I know is a controversial opinion to hold. But I really did enjoy this book. So if you liked The Kite Runner, I would pick up 1,000 Splendid Suns. We're almost done. Gentleman in Moscow. Oh, this book. It's so good. The idea, it's set in Russia, and the idea is that this man who has been committed of a crime has decided to hold himself up in a hotel, and he refuses to leave, and he lives there for years. And so it's the story of kind of how he does that and who he connects with in the hotel and and you come to love him even though you know he's a criminal of some sort. And it's just such an interesting premise. Anyway, if you're looking for kind of a different read that's written well, I would definitely pick this up. I saved my best for last. I am a huge Barbara Kingsolver fan. I love her writing. The Poisonwood Bible, I think, is her favorite. Some of you may have read The Bean Trees, which is a much smaller book. But the Poisonwood Bible is set in Africa, and it kind of traces the members of a missionary family who are trying to Christianize the locals. And each chapter is told by a different person's point of view, and I really like that kind of storytelling. So I really liked her book. Plus, I really enjoy her prose, and she's an activist too, and so there's that kind of a tinge in her writing which I appreciate. All right, so there are so many books, and as you can see, I have lots of books. There are some of my favorites are in my office, so I don't even have those nearby. I didn't really even dive into the nonfiction. There's so much good nonfiction out there right now. So if you want some recommendations of what to read, then please don't hesitate to ask. Let me know. I'm more than happy to talk books and geek out about books. But stay reading, right? Find the genre that you like, find the style that you like, and just keep reading. All right. Talk to you soon.